So, Tanya, what are you going to do? This is the thought that ran through my mind as I spoke with my counsellor. We'd been talking about all the devastating things that I'd been going through in the last few years, and I talked to her about the crippling pain of having lupus, depression, and how for the second time in my life, I was contemplating suicide. As we spoke, I realised I was at a crossroads. I had a choice to make. I could either continue to spiral downwards, continue to put up my walls and put on my armour because I felt so broken and vulnerable, or I could reach out to the world with love and compassion, see that everyone like me was holding on to some burden they couldn't find a way to get rid of, and find a way for all of us to make something beautiful out of our suffering. And the more we spoke, the more I realised that I was at what is called the call, the first step in the hero's journey. And I realised this because I'd been reading the work of Joseph Campbell. Now, before he died in 1987, Joseph Campbell wrote about mythology and religion, but his real passion was helping people to heal their lives by following their bliss, putting their passions at the centre of their lives and letting the joy of doing that inform how they could be of service to the world. He was a student of Carl Jung's theories about the collective unconscious, that part of the unconscious mind that we all share and have in common. It's derived from memory and experience, and it's where instincts and archetypes live. And one archetype in particular, that of the hero, became the central focus of his seminal work, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. In this book, Joseph Campbell deconstructed heroic stories from around the world and found the common themes in them. This was called the monomyth, or the hero's journey. It's a blueprint for how heroic stories can be told, but it was also a template for someone like me who was looking to lead a more heroic life. The definition of a hero is someone who overcomes the challenges they face and uses that wisdom in service of something greater than themselves. And that's what I wanted to do. Now, the hero's journey goes something like this. There is the call. This is a moment. It's an invitation to the journey. And it usually comes about disguised as the end of a long relationship or the end of a job. It can sometimes be the loss of a loved one. But it's an opportunity for the would-be hero to leave their comfort zone and to do something great. Now, if the call is accepted, next the hero will meet with a mentor. This is a person whose wisdom and advice will help the hero to cross the threshold from their safety zone into what is known as the unknown. Here, the hero will face trials and tests, challenges designed specifically to help the hero to grow in strength and courage. At this point, the hero must fully surrender to the journey, except that they don't know how it's going to unfold from here on in. They must do this and be willing to see every challenge that comes along as a learning opportunity, and every person they meet as a teacher, friend, an ally. Because next comes the dark night of the soul. This is like death. At this point, the hero has fallen and gotten up so many times they're weak, they're at their lowest ebb. All is lost. They question themselves, they question the merits of the journey, and they want to give it all up. But just as it seems that the darkness will go on forever, there is a glimmer of light on the horizon, and this signals a coming resurrection. At this point, the hero will receive a gift of gold from the gods to tell them that they are traveling in the right direction. So now the hero begins the return journey home. They have on the one hand the gift of gold, and on the other what is known as the elixir of truth. Having incorporated all the trials and lessons of the journey, they now have wisdom to share with their community. And if they share this wisdom with compassion, with honesty, and with bravery, their community becomes stronger and wiser as a result. Now, as a writer, my passion, my bliss, is to create stories that illuminate the human experience with beauty and with hope. But as I spoke more with my counsellor, I realised that I wanted to lean towards the oral storytelling tradition of my Ghanaian heritage. I wanted to belong to a circle of biographical storytellers, telling true life tales, where I would get the chance to share my journey, and with compassion and love, make room for others to stand on the stage and share their stories too. Reading Joseph Campbell taught me not only the importance of the monomyth, but he reinforced for me the importance of storytelling. Joseph Campbell believed that stories exist as teaching tools within communities. In ancient times, we would sit around the fire and talk about our day. We would sing and we would speak in poetry and songs about the stars and about the world around us, and we would just comfort each other. A story might be something like, "Hey, I survived an attack by a saber-toothed tiger today. Let me describe to you how frightening the whole thing was, how vivid the colours were and the smells, and I'll tell you how I managed to get away so that if you're ever in the same position, you know exactly what to do." And I really feel that today we can do with connecting with that ancient tradition. Perhaps fewer stories about saber-toothed tigers and more about how to survive panic attacks at work and at Christmas, that sort of thing. But where I lived, there were no real-life tale circles. And with lupus preventing me from getting about as much as I would like, what was I going to do? I started by accepting the call. In my meditation, I prayed, "Dear universe, help me to be the best storyteller I can be. And in the journey towards this, help me to find the strength to make room for others to share their stories too." So of course, next, once I'd set this intention, came my meeting with a mentor. And she came in the guise of an amazing, transformative storyteller that I met at her weekend workshop in the Cotswolds. She taught me that storytelling can help in the release of long-held wounds. And she showed me that when people get together to honestly share their stories, that something magical is always born. So I said to her, "Sue, there isn't a real-life tale circle where I live. I need you to come to my town and set one up. I have pledged to help someone do this, and I'm really good at admin, so I'll do the admin if you can set up the circle." And she looked at me and said, "Why can't you set one up?" And this question took me aback, because up until then I thought, I'm going to find a storyteller and I'm going to be a helpful pair of hands. Because the thought of being the storyteller to actually set up a new storytelling initiative, that raised all my insecurities. I started to experience imposter syndrome really badly. There was a small voice in my head that played on loop, and it continuously said the same thing. "Who are you, with all your baggage and all your problems, to start anything? I don't think you even have the right experience." So I knew that if I was going to continue in my mission to start a storytelling group, I was going to have to invent a toolkit. A first aid box of helpful things to help me in these moments where I felt small, vulnerable, and not enough. So I pulled together everything I'd ever learned from reading self-help books and from years of going to counselling, and I came up with these 3 definitive things. The first was to watch my words. I took conscious control of the thoughts that ran through my mind and the words I spoke about myself and about others. I couldn't stop that small voice popping up whenever it wanted to, but when it did, I could take a breath. I could stand back and I could counteract it with more loving and more kind words. I would say, "I am deserving of happiness. I am worthy of bliss. I've got this." And I would repeat these words over and over again to try and make that imposter's voice sound small. Next, I practiced gratitude more and more. I gave thanks in the morning and before I went to bed for my day, for everything, for my friends, for my family, for my favourite bread being back at Sainsbury's, for flowers, for smiles on the bus. And I noticed that the more I gave thanks, the more I found things to be grateful for. Lastly, I created small everyday rituals, especially rituals to encourage forgiveness. I had to learn to forgive myself in those moments where I felt I'd fallen short, but also forgive people who I felt had hurt me in some way. Grudges are like baggage. They weigh us down. And these rituals of forgiveness were for me a way of traveling light on this journey. So I repeated these tools over and over again until they became my way of life, until they helped me in those moments when I wanted to give up. And I immersed myself in the world of storytelling. I met other tellers, and I started to openly call myself a storyteller. And each time I did, I fought and I faced that voice inside which called me an imposter. I started to make friends at the local authority who supported my idea of having a storytelling festival in our town to encourage people to share their stories, their tales, and their experiences. I thought this would be a great way to plant the seed of storytelling in my community and encourage people to just see how transformative storytelling can be. I made friends and allies who wanted to help me make that festival a reality. And all the time, I listened to all the podcasts I could about storytelling and listened to stories online. I was comforted by all the tales of courage and survival that I was hearing. But then about 2 months ago, I suffered the most serious lupus flare-up of my life. I was in so much pain. I couldn't sit up, eat, anything without help. I was at my lowest ebb. I had to cancel workshops and meetings that I had so carefully planned as part of my storytelling crusade, and I felt a huge wave of shame and guilt wash over me as a result. I was embarrassed to be incapacitated. I was embarrassed to be sick. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had so much time in bed by myself, weeks on end, to imagine the worst of what people thought of me. And in that weird place that you can get into when you've been in pain for a long time, I imagined people saying horrible things behind my back. And I thought the only way to get out of it was to change my name and run away so I never had to face anyone again. But my mum and my husband would sit by my bed. They would encourage me to see things differently, more clearly. They gave me the courage to reach out to my new allies and to be honest about what I was going through and to ask for help. I wrote emails that said, "I'm sorry to have let you down. I'm not well, but I'll be back in touch as soon as I feel better." This was new for me. My usual thing was to put up my walls and to hide away because I felt so broken. And for the first time, I asked for help. And people, of course, people were lovely. People always are. I received so much encouragement and love that this was the glimmer of light on the horizon for me. It was at this time that I found out that I had won a grant to hold a storytelling festival in my town. And so now I find myself returning home, armed with the elixir of truth. I've learnt that no matter how broken I am, something beautiful can come of it. And I have a gift of gold, a storytelling festival to celebrate the experiences of my neighbours and friends in what I hope will be a month-long party. I don't think we become heroes by putting on our armour and hiding from the world. At least that's what I'm learning. I think we become heroes by compassionately and lovingly tending our wounds. I think we become heroes by having the courage to put our passions at the centre of our lives and let the joy of that inform how we can be of service. I embarked on this journey as an act of alchemy. I wanted to turn my tears into gold. I wanted to become a storyteller and make something beautiful out of all that I'd gone through. I wanted to follow my bliss. And so I ask all of you, what is your bliss? What is the thing that gets you so excited you don't even know what to do with yourself, that makes time disappear when you're doing it? Because this thing, whatever it is, this is the key to healing many of your wounds, to making you feel whole again. And it's how, in these extraordinary and exceptional times, we can all become the heroes our communities are waiting for. Thank you.